Welcome to the next stage of the flamenco guitar build. Firstly, my sincere apologies for the ludicrous Hawaiian shirt. It is, of course, the English summertime at the moment, which any English person will tell you is the best fortnight of the year. And I'm taking full advantage of it, so that's my excuse. So today we're going to have a little go at fitting the tuners to the headstock of the guitar, like so, or thereabouts. Two things that we've got to do to achieve that. Firstly, we've got to drill the three either side, 3 holes into the side elevation of the headstock for those pegs to sit in. And once we've done that, we've got to cut out the 2 slots in the front face where the strings will disappear to attach to the tuning pegs. So we'll have a little look and see how we're going to do that. 2 things of note really. First thing is that, as you're undoubtedly aware, the angles of the side of the headstock are not parallel to the midline of the guitar neck. As such, when you drill your holes, they will be at a slight angle. So that's something we've got to bear in mind. Indeed, the measurements that we take for various stages along the way here will be taken from either face and kind of calling that, if you like, the flat surface from the point of view of squaring lines and what have you. The other thing is to ensure that we drill the holes before we cut the slots out of the front. This is something I found out to my peril. The guitar at the back there, the kind of darker of the 2 flamencos over on the other side there, was my first flamenco guitar. And I made the error of cutting the 2 slots in the front and then trying to drill the holes through afterwards, which, although in the grand scheme of things it still worked, what I did find is that as I drilled through into the open space that I've created in this cavity in the front, I got tear out from the drill, which put me in an absolute world of pain from the point of view of tidying that up. Got very close to running out of spare meat along the struts of the edge of the guitar, the headstock, if you like. But we got there in the end. But take it from me, just do it this way round and you'll save yourself all manner of issues. So we'll have a little look, firstly how we're going to mark it up, and then how we're going to cut those two bits, 2 holes, 8 holes, 10 holes, lots of holes. So, marking out. First thing I have done is drawn a centre line down the headstock. And there's a reason for that, contrary to what I was saying about all the measurements being taken off of the sides for angle and what have you. There is one measurement that I did require to run from the centre line. I've offered up the machine heads to the position that I want them to ultimately sit in, and just marked the point at which the first machine head will end up, if you like. Then taking your set square, protractor even, I've just marked left and right of that point straight across, and that's given me the position of the machine head where it starts from the point of view either side, so that it's at the same level. Then I've drawn a line with my square from that point straight down, and that's given me a reference point on the side as to where the center of the hole, the first hole, is going to be. Then take your calipers and divide the headstock in 2 and draw a line down through the middle. Then comes the exciting bit. So this is a little template that I've made out of some maple with the spacing for the machine heads. As you can see, there's also a center line running down there. So quite simply, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line that center line up, and looking down the hole, I can see crosshairs, very much like a rifle sight. So I know now that I'm centered on the middle of the first hole, and I've got reference, and we're all well and truly in line. And I'm not a great believer in measuring if I can get away without measuring, so quite simply, take a brad point drill bit, just dunk them down, give them a little bit of a push. I'm not pushing them too hard, I've already done this, truth be told. And that will mark you the 3 holes. and take your trusty bradawl and just give a little bit more definition to those holes, so as when the brad point drill comes in later on, it's got something nice and groovy to rest into, to take reference from. Right then, let's dig some holes in the side of this here guitar headstock. 10mm drill bit. I've just popped a little bit of masking tape at the depth that we want to achieve, so at the depth of the actual post on the side of the machine head, so that when I fire it into the side of the headstock, I'll know when to stop digging. So one more little marking out activity that we've got to undertake is this. We've got the line there that runs from the brad points that we've made to locate where the holes are going to go, and now we reference from the angle of the headstock to that point and make a little mark. So now that is 90 degrees to the side of the headstock as opposed to 90 degrees from the midline. So the next step then is to set the drill ready to receive the headstock at the correct angle. So what I've done is offered the headstock onto the bed of the drill press and adjusted the angle. This drill press has an angle adjustment on its bed, so that the drill is directly in line with the 90 degree to the side line that we've scribed in. And the great thing about having this set up is literally I can just go along, pop the 3 in, and then when I turn it around the other way, because the angle is of course the same, I can do exactly the same thing coming back the other way for the next 3. So we'll get that done. So there we go. They all line up perfectly. I've not pushed them all the way in. That's the route to the dark side. I'm trying to prise them out and damaging the wood or what have you, because they'll get stuck in there at this point. So that's them all lined up ready to rock, and they will look at digging the slots out of the front. Marking out then for the front face slots. I've got a little template here that I've used to take some measurements from, but again, you don't really need to be using templates. This is quite a simple process once you get your head around it. Effectively, the edge of the slot from the leading edge of either side of the headstock is 6mm in to the body. Is 6mm of wood either side of the slots. So all I've done is I've marked a line 6mm either side. That gives me the lines of the outside of the slot. The slot itself is 16mm across, so I've just marked a parallel line 16mm from the line I'd previously created. That gives me my inside line, and repeated that the other side thereof. What I did then is I marked a center point, a center line between those two lines, so effectively a line going right through the center of what's going to end up being the aperture. And there's a good reason for that. As I said, it's 16mm across the aperture itself, and I'm using a 16mm drill bit in order to get me started with it. So I needed to find a point in the middle of the aperture, 8mm down from either end, in order to find the center of the drill bit, so as the radius of the drill bit would cut and meet either side of the line. So a 16mm drill bit will have an 8mm radius, i.e. the diameter of it is 16. Therefore, if you come down 8 from the end, make a point, that is where the drill bit will cut and leave you 8mm either side of the brad point, if you like. So I've located, using the template that I had, the end of the slots and scribe them across from the center line with a protractor so they're equal on both sides. and mark down 8mm from the point where the two holes, where I want the ends of the holes to be, and giving that a darn good poking with the old bradle. So that should give me good reference when I go to the drill press to drill the first two holes. And simply what we're going to do is we're going to drill two holes for each slot, either end, and then the graft comes in where we have to get a coping saw and cut that piece out. I'm afraid there's no machinery that I have that will do that. It's got to be done with the Mark I human eyeball and a bit of elbow grease. Groovy. Right, so I've just drilled the 4 holes that denote the top and bottom of the apertures. Now simply I'm going to cut between those 2 points, get that lump out of there, and then comes all the fun and games with files and blades and chisels and stuff just to clean them up. And then yeah, we'll have a guitar headstock. Right, that's all the donkey work done. As you can see, I've just roughed out the slots now, just joining the two holes either end with a coping saw. And as with all things that are done by hand, I've stayed well and truly inside of the line just for that sort of gross removal of timber. And I will tidy it up with a chisel and some files and make it look pretty. And just to let you know what it looks like thereafter, here's one I did earlier. I'll just put a backstrap on there as well, a little veneer of rosewood, but that's another matter. Anyway, see you next time.